Welcome back to Mass Mutation Month. Last video we took a look at all the new Star Alliance cards in Mass Mutation, and today in our final episode of the series we're going to be looking at the remaining cards in Mass Mutation coming from House Untamed. Once again there will be spoilers, so please stop watching now if you don't want any of the new cards spoiled for you. I'm Keyforge Concepts, and this is our Mass Mutation Month review of House Untamed. Let's start with the House Hybrid Untamed cards. Within Untamed, these cards will have the ending Beast in their name, and in other houses they can be identified by the prefix Lyco. The Untamed House Hybrid cards give the creature Skirmish. Paired with the power increases from House Sanctum and Saurian, or attached to the fight effect from Star Alliance, this can be a pretty solid ability. However, if this were to be paired with a house like Logos, or the weakening effect from Shadows or Dis, it would really limit the effectiveness of this card. In general, this seems to be a middle-of-the-pack effect for me, being strong paired with houses mentioned previously. Next is Cephaloist, a 4-power creature that reads, while you have 4 amber or more, your amber cannot be stolen. Look at what they did to my boy, my poor Fuzzy Gruen. While this card ability is very distant from the original, it's still a powerful ability in its own right. Being immune to stealing when you're getting close or already in check is going to drive some Shadows lists crazy and shut down a lot of options from other houses as well. As you'll see later in the video, being incentivized to have a good amount of amber in your pool will play well with Untamed's overall identity in this set, and at 4 power, this comes off as a solid card overall. Next is Dark Faerie, a 2-power creature with Skirmish, as well as the fight effect Gain 2 Amber. This is the mutated version of Dew Faerie, trading Elusive and a Reap effect for Skirmish and a fight effect. Both are going to have issues surviving damage, however Dew Faerie's Elusive helps it a little bit in that regard. If you're able to keep this card on board and use it, the payoff from Dark Faerie is greater since not only are you gaining 2 Amber, but also a free 2 damage onto your opponent's board. While not an amazing card, this card is going to force your opponent's hand in a lot of situations. Next, we're going to be looking at Fandangle, a 3-power creature that reads, while you have 4 amber or more, your non-untamed creatures enter play ready. Now this is a textbook Untamed Witch, with a terrifyingly strong effect that needs to be addressed by your opponent. You will need at least 4 amber, but as mentioned earlier, it's not going to be too difficult in many Untamed lists. This plays as a situational Dusk Witch that only works with creatures from other houses. This will still enable some pretty strong follow-up turns with your creatures that could quickly spiral out of control. This is a threat that needs to be immediately addressed by your opponent. Next up is Floomf, a 3-power creature with Skirmish, as well as the fight effect give a beast creature 2+1 power counters. 3-power Skirmish is decent and will help it consistently get off its fight effect. Even if there are no other creatures on board, Floomf can still give itself the +2 power, so it's not going to go to waste. This is basically a removal stick that's going to keep growing, which isn't a bad idea overall. It's also a cat. Keep that in mind for now, it'll make sense later. A standard and solid card overall. Next is Gloriana's Attendant, a 1-power creature with 2 Enhance Amber icons. I think this is the proper way to fix Dust Pixie, which many veteran players know as a very sought-after and problematic combo card from Call of the Archons. Worlds Collide tried to give an alternate take on it with Mab the Mad, but that card was just too slow and not impactful enough to take its place. Having the Amber not on Gloriana's Attendant itself, but on your other cards, prevents the abuse from bouncing Dust Pixie back to hand and playing it multiple times a turn. You're still netting 2 amber with this card, which I think still makes it a pretty good card overall. Next is Keyfrog, a 2-power creature with the destroyed effect, forge a key at current cost. I like to think this card was inspired by typos made by people searching the game of Keyforge up. This is going to be a very interesting card to play around. Untamed have been known for their key cheating ability, particularly with Key Charge and Chota Hazri, the creature equivalent. While you are potentially able to forge at current cost with Keyfrog, the big downside is that your opponent will have the initiative when to trigger this most often. Unless you have 2 damage pips in your Untamed list, or a way to ready and fight with this card, you'll be hard pressed to destroy it on the turn it's played. Then on your opponent's turn, as long as they can take you off check, they can then destroy Keyfrog with no repercussions. I like the setup and thinking that will be required to effectively play around and use Keyfrog. And with that mindset, I think this is a good and healthy card for the game. Next up is Pismire, a 4-power creature that reads while there are more friendly mutant creatures than enemy mutant creatures, your opponent's keys cost +2 Amber. Seems like Untamed will play well with mutants in this set, along with House Shadows. This is a nice piece of Amber control and will play very well against other sets due to their lack of mutants. In this set, it may be difficult against some decks to use this effect, since it is negated if both players have the same amount of creatures that are mutants. Regardless, it's a solid card with a good effect. Next is Rapid Evolution, an action card with 1 Amber pip with the play effect Choose a Creature. Give it a +1 power counter for each Amber you have. More incentive for more Amber from Untamed. This could potentially be wild. Giving some threatening creatures +6 or more power is going to cause problems for your opponent if they can't remove them outright. The best part about this card is that it's not reliant on your board state like the Fittest was last set, which makes me like this card a lot more. Next, we're looking at Reclaimed by Nature, an action card with 1 Amber pip with the play effect Purge an Artifact. Resolve its bonus icons as if you had just played it. This is incredible artifact control, and one of the best ones in the game at this point. Not only are you gaining an Amber from playing this, but there are a lot of artifacts that have Amber pips on them, which means you'll most likely be netting yourself 2 Amber and purging an artifact from the game with this card. If they happen to have any enhancements on their artifact, then this just becomes even better. As a house that has struggled with artifact control in the past, this is a very strong card and a welcome card in Untamed. Next is Resurgence, an action card with 1 enhanced draw icon, as well as the play effect Return a creature from your discard pile to your hand. If that creature is a mutant, return another creature from your discard pile to your hand. Let's compare this to Regrowth, a big player in past Untamed sets with a similar effect. Off the bat, the lack of an Amber pip does hurt the card, but at least it's giving you a draw enhance. The potential to be able to put 2 Untamed creatures back into your hand is very powerful. You could even use a creature to trade on board and then immediately bring it back from the discard and put it back into play. Overall, this is going to be a very strong card to bring back your threats with. Next is Savage Clash, an action with the play effect Destroy each creature except the most powerful enemy creature and the least powerful friendly creature. This is pretty much a true board wipe, which is going to be very valuable in this set. You will be leaving your opponent's strongest creature on board, which may be a problem, but if you can manipulate your board to have a single powerful creature for yourself, then you could be in a pretty good position going forward. This isn't as strong as some other board clears, but anything that wipes out most of the board unconditionally like this is still a strong card. Next is Commune, an action card with Omega, as well as the play effect Lose all of your Amber, gain 4 Amber. This is going to be a crazy first turn card, on par with a card like Treasure Map. Aside from playing this first turn, this is going to be a great card to have on any turn that you're ending with less than 4 Amber. Did you just forge a key and have your board wiped? Play out all your creatures, and oh, I'm also going to end the turn and put myself to 4 Amber too. The flexibility and use this card has over Treasure Map make it a very strong and versatile card. Next is Dark Harbinger, a 4-power creature that reads after you play an Untamed action card, ready Dark Harbinger. Another Untamed Witch, this card is going to obviously synergize well with all the powerful actions that we're seeing in this set from Untamed. Being able to potentially use Harbinger 2 or 3 times in a turn is very powerful. Dark Harbinger is also unique because it will also be generated with one of the following 3 action cards we see. Regardless, this is a very powerful and threatening card. The first one it could be generated with is Mutation of Cunning, an action card with 1 Amber pip with the play effect until the start of your next turn, a creature gains Elusive and the Mutant trait. This is probably the weakest of the 3 mutations. Elusive is okay to give a creature a bit of survivability for your next turn, but in general seems to be the least proactive and most underwhelming. Next is the Mutation of Fury, an action card with 1 Amber Pip that has the play effect until the start of your next turn, a creature gains Assault 3 and the mutant trait. This one is better. Assault 3 is solid, but unfortunately it's not going to be enough to outright destroy a lot of the creatures in this set. This can help a creature punch up, however, or help them get around a pesky elusive creature. This is still a decent option and better than the elusive one. The final mutation you could see is Mutation of Instinct, an action card with 1 Ember Pip with the play effect until the start of your next turn, a creature gains Skirmish and the mutant trait. I think by itself, Mutation of Instinct is the strongest of the 3, because Skirmish gives it a lot more trading potential than the Assault 3 does. Combined with Harbinger itself, this can turn Harbinger into a trading machine if they can get a few fights off with actions. I will say, however, that this does lack synergy with some of the other Untamed creatures, since many of them already have Skirmish themselves. Overall, however, I think you'll probably either want this or Mutation of Fury paired with Harbinger in your decks. Next is Growth Surge, an action with 1 Ember Pip with the play effect give a flank creature 3+1 power counters. Give its neighbor 2+1 power counters. Give the second creature's other neighbor a +1 power counter. This is an interesting card. It reminds me a lot of Positron Bolt, but with power counters instead of damage. You're going to be putting a total of 6 extra power on board, and it does have a solid spread amongst your creatures. You'll also only need 3 creatures to maximize the gain from this card, which means this will become much more valuable in more situations, once again compared to a card like the Fittest from Worlds Collide. With an Amber Pip on top, this is a solid card overall. Next is Lumilu, a 4-power creature with the Reap effect, gain 1 Amber for each other friendly beast creature. Within Untamed, this is a very threatening Reap ability. Lumilu will still be getting the Amber from the Reap itself, so any other Amber on top of that is going to be very strong. And with all the beasts running around in Untamed and the few in Saurian off the top of my head, if you're able to maintain board control, this will quickly generate a lot of Amber for your pool. This is also the second cat we've seen this set, remember that. Overall, a very threatening card, expected to be targeted down by your opponents. Next, we're looking at Mushroom with a View, an artifact with 1 Amber Pip with the Omni effect, heal 1 damage from each friendly creature. This is just an all-around nice card. The art is nice, the flavor is nice, and being able to heal 1 damage off of all of your creatures as an Omni effect is pretty nice too. It's not going to be immediately impactful, but it is going to help you maintain board and increase your trading power over a long period of time, especially if you have a wide board with many creatures. A pleasant card overall. Next is Trimble, a 3-power creature that reads each mutant creature gains Skirmish. As you all know, I'm still not sold on the mutant synergy in this set. Within Untamed particularly, we've already seen a few of the mutants in this set have Skirmish themselves. Of all effects, however, gaining Skirmish is one of the stronger mutant synergies to have. If you have a deck full of mutants, this will be great. Otherwise, this just becomes an average 3-power Skirmish creature. Next is Vault's Blessing, an action card with 1 Amber Pip with the play effect each player gains 1 Amber for each mutant creature they control. More mutant love, and another card that will be one-sided against other sets. Within Mass Mutation, this could be a very big liability against some decks and a potential discard. This still has an Amber Pip though, so at the end of the day, you stand more to gain from this card than your opponent. You also hold the initiative of whether to actually use this card or discard. A potentially strong card in certain Untamed lists. Next up is Wild Bounty, an action card with 2 Enhance Amber Pips, as well as the play effect the next time you play a card this turn, resolve each of its bonus icons an additional time. This is a very strong card when you break down what it's actually bringing to your deck. Not only is this card giving you 2 Amber in your deck, but you'll also get to double the bonus icons on the next card you play. Even if they don't have enhancements on them, if you have an action or an artifact with an Amber Pip, that's going to be a 3rd Amber that this card gives you at a minimum. You could get unlucky and not have much to combo this with, but I think this is a fantastic card that brings a lot to an Untamed deck list. Next up is Aemberlution, an action card that is Omega, and it also has the play effect Destroy Each Creature. Each player reveals their hand and puts each creature from their hand into play ready. Mass Mutation has introduced some really creative and interesting board clear options, and this is definitely one of them. This will basically function as a board reset, and you'll be banking that the creatures you have in your hand will be able to deal with the creatures they have in theirs. There are no house limitations, so you'll most likely be able to empty your hand and get a nice draw at the end of your turn. This does also go the same for your opponent, however, since they will have the initiative and the opportunity to fight and use their board first. If you accidentally put a threatening card into play for them, it could be disastrous. However, against certain decks and houses like Star Alliance that relatively don't have many creatures, this will be a punishing card. Next is Blossom Drake, a 4-power creature that reads Blossom Drake gets +1 power for each artifact in play. Each artifact's text box is considered blank except for traits. This is a unique and powerful form of artifact control that will also increase in power the more artifacts are on board. Be mindful that this is also a double-sided effect, however, so none of your artifacts will have their text boxes either. Still, this is going to be very impactful against certain decks with powerful artifacts. Interesting card design overall. Next up is Chonkers, a 1-power creature with Skirmish that reads, after an enemy creature is destroyed fighting Chonkers, double the number of +1 power counters on Chonkers. It also has the play effect, give Chonkers a +1 power counter. Starting at effectively 2 power, Chonkers won't be an issue if your opponent can immediately remove them. However, if he's able to live, or if you're able to combo him with some of the other cards that give power counters, then Chonkers can quickly grow into double-digit power and get out of control. If your opponent doesn't have any removal cards, then they'll be hard-pressed to fight into Chonkers in an attempt to destroy him, since he will keep doubling every trade. At the end of the day, however, Chonkers is just a removal card. He will most often only be fighting once a turn, so if your opponent can still generate Amber without board control, then he won't be that impactful a card. Chonkers will give many decks a huge headache though. Overall, an interesting card. I can see a lot of players struggling to have the sheer number of power counters to keep up with this thing. Next up is Dark Queen Gloriana, a 3-power creature with 2 enhanced Amber pips, as well as the play effect, return a friendly non-untamed creature to your hand. Dark Queen Gloriana will always be generated with one of her attendants that we saw earlier. Once again, giving 2 Amber to your deck is really nice. However, I'm not entirely sold on its play effect. Since it's an out-of-house creature, you likely won't be able to play that card again that turn. This is going to clog up your hand and take up an extra draw space. If you could combo this card with strong play effects, however, such as the ones we saw from our Shadows review, then this card starts to feel a bit better. An okay card, the big draw for me is the 2 Amber enhance over the play effect. Next is Eunioa, a 6-power creature that reads, after an enemy creature is destroyed fighting Eunioa, gain 1 Amber and heal 2 damage from Eunioa. I think this is a pretty strong card. It has a very similar effect to Stealer of Souls. However, Eunioa gets some extra survivability by healing from her fights. Your opponent also cannot trade into Eunioa because her effect is still going to trigger. Combined with some power counters, this is going to be a very scary card for your opponent to deal with. This is also the 3rd cat we've seen this set. Strong card overall. Next is Look What I Found, an action with Omega that has the play effect return 1 card of each type, action, artifact, creature, and upgrade, from your discard pile to your hand. The bad news is that this card is most likely going to stop you from drawing at the end of your turn. The good news is that this is going to help shape your hand for the house you call next, bringing back cards from the house you plan on using next so you can play them on your next turn. Your opponent will see you taking all cards from a specific house, so that will definitely telegraph your next move and they will be able to prepare and react. Also keep in mind that you need to return 1 card of each type if applicable, so you can't choose to not return an artifact if you have an artifact in your discard. Not the strongest card overall, but solid and could lead to some interesting follow-up turns. Now we're looking at Mercy Malkin Queen, a 3-power creature with Skirmish that reads after a friendly cat creature enters play, ward it. It also has the fight effect, ready a friendly beast creature. So here is where the cat synergy is in Untamed. If you recall, we named 3 cats total from the house, which is okay. Unfortunately, Mercy is only guaranteed to be generated with at least 1 cat card, which could be underwhelming if it's only a single Floomf, for instance. If you're able to get the cats you need, having them warded on play is really strong, particularly with the last 2 cats we saw. Regardless of the cat synergy, having the fight effect in Untamed is pretty good, allowing you to get 2 fights or even 2 reaps with a beast creature. It may be underwhelming in some decks, but I think overall this is a solid card. And finally, the last gigantic creature we have in the set, Niffle Kong, a 12th power 2 armor creature with the play effect, search your deck and discard pile for any number of Niffle creatures. Reveal them and put them into your hand. Shuffle your deck. It also has the fight reap effect. You may destroy a friendly Niffle creature. If you do, deal 3 damage to a creature, steal 1, and destroy an enemy artifact. This card is guaranteed to be generated with at least 1 Niffle creature, either the Niffle Apes or maybe a Niffle Queen. So it'll always have a use for its ability. That being said, I think this is by far the weakest of the 3 gigantic creatures. The Niffle cards aren't great on their own, and being reliant on potentially only 1 in your deck is not ideal. The Fight Reap effect itself is strong and offers some nice well-rounded effects, but it'll be the consistency of use that leaves Niffle Kong lacking compared to its 2 gigantic counterparts. Unless I have 3 or 4 other Niffle creatures to use this with, this is not a card I would want to see in my lists. And that's it. We have officially looked at every new card in Mass Mutation. So as we've done for every other house, let's review what Untamed will look like in Mass Mutation. Untamed seems to have a much more comprehensive identity this set compared to Worlds Collide, which is really great. It actually feels really reminiscent of their first iteration, with a lot of skirmish, power counter usage, key cheating, and amber gain effects. They also have a large amount of strong cards with omega effects, which seem great on their own, but could become clunky if you have multiple in hand. Untamed also seems to still be a very strong Amber generation house, with a lot of gain effects and a decent amount of Amber enhancements as well. We also saw a few cards that incentivize an Untamed player to have a good amount of Amber in their pool to trigger additional card effects, which I think is an interesting mechanic I hope they explore more in the future. And as a generalization, Untamed seems to be packing a lot of very strong and impactful action cards this set. Between board wipes, Amber generation, and artifact control, Untamed seem to be in a much better spot this set. Their one major weakness, it seems, will be Amber control. Other than a key cost increase and Niffle Kong's effect, Untamed don't have many new ways to take their opponents off key. That concludes our review of the new Mass Mutation cards from House Untamed, and our entire review of all the cards from Mass Mutation. In my honest opinion, after looking at all these cards, this looks like it's going to be a really fun set. There are a lot of new and creative cards, and I think from a strength standpoint, the houses seem to be much more balanced this set. Unlike past sets, I can't think of a particular house I wouldn't want to see in any of my decks. What a month it has been. I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to make all these videos within the month. This has been a huge undertaking for me, so thank you for watching and coming along for the ride. I really appreciate the support. Now that this is all done, I'm really looking forward to going back to my roots and making more strategy-oriented content for you guys. I already have a few topics I want to talk about, so I'm excited to get started on those. Thank you so much once again for watching. I hope you stay well. I hope you enjoy the Mass Mutation cards when they come out in your area, and I will see you in the next video.